This is the tree we're about to draw, but first we'll have a quick look at our reference photo just to note the main details of it. We know trees come in all shapes and sizes, so I chose this tree because it was a good general tree shape. The key things I want to point out before we start to draw is just that I always pay attention to the actual outline of the tree. I just see what shape it is, because while we don't have to stick to that exactly, I find it works very well to try and approximate those details. And then I try and look at the overall pattern of light and dark, because that's what lets me see the surface shape of the branches, of the clumps of leaves, of the overall effect. And so the way the light penetrates, the way the shadows sit are really vital. And the important thing at this point is just to notice that most of the tree is in shade and shadow. That it's just this really very top bit here and down this edge and a little bit penetrating to this branch that obviously comes out towards us. But otherwise, there's a good deal of shade, and then further in there's shadow as well. And there's more darker shade and shadows towards the bottom of the tree. So with those in mind, let's start. Firstly, I like to lay in something of the outline. You can see I'm using a very light touch, really just little dashes and specks and dots. I don't want a heavy line here because I want to leave my options open for the effect of the silhouette of the tree. Silhouettes are always really important in whatever we're drawing, in establishing the meaning, the visual meaning of what we're illustrating. So we want to keep them as loose and as free as possible, because trees do not have a hard edge. But that does make it tricky to draw when you're using a fine liner pen. I'm also trying to establish these darkest spots of shade and shadow within the tree, because that will help me get a feel for the contours of these rounded clumps of branches and leaves. And I really want to establish a sense of there are rounded canopy clumps of leaves that collect the light in certain ways. So placing the very darkest parts is a good way, I find, to start to establish that. And once I've got the darkest bits in place, I can start to spread those out with a little more hatching to create that. Now, my hatching doesn't have to be perfect all in the same direction. I'm going to layer hatching on top of hatching by the end of this, and I'll be doing that by shifting the angle slightly. So I like to use the hatching to create a sense of the direction of the leaves and the branches and the shape of the tree, not just the shade of the tree. I put these lamps in because they're there, and even though it's a lesson on the tree, I think a foreground item often really is useful, particularly one that contrasts with the organic nature of a tree as much as a lamp does. So now I'm going to put in some of the more general areas of tone with some wider hatching. So I'm establishing really all of the tree which is in shade. So most of the tree is going to have some hatching on it, but reasonably light hatching. So here I go with that, and I'm aware that I'm going to be coming across darker. I'm not trying to do the final hatching at this point. Hatching of a tree canopy, especially when there's a lot of shade, I find is best done slowly and building up over the entire canopy, not trying to finish a certain point, because I really need to see how some lighter parts look before I can truly establish the darker parts. So I'm working back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, keeping my hatching lines vaguely in the same direction, but shifting the angle slightly, which intensifies the darkness effect. And coming in quite dark now at the bottom, adding a few more details to my edge just to give more variety and a sense of little clumps of leaves as well as individual leaves. Because although I'm generally not drawing any leaves, I still want to suggest leaf. And the silhouette is one of the most important ways we have of suggesting leaf and small clumps of leaves. And so then it's a bit more of that, and working still on the shadow in the tree. And I just realized there's a third lamp, which I think I may as well put in that third lamppost, which creates a lovely sense of perspective, but also a sense of scale. This tree is some way back from us, so it is quite a large tree. And suggesting scale for our trees can be a problem. We don't want a tree which in our reference photo is 3 meters tall to look 100 meters tall, or a 100-meter tree to look like it's 5 meters because of the way we've drawn the leaves so large. So trying to get a sense of the scale of the tree is important, and The size of the marks we use, again, particularly for the silhouette, is an important part of that. And now I'm just working harder at these hatching lines to intensify the shade on the left-hand side of the tree. And at the very end, I sort of work out that I should go a bit darker down the bottom. But here's our tree. Hi, I'm Stephen Travers. Now that was a fairly generalised tree, even though of course it was actually a specific tree, but it's a good in the middle place to start, I think, in terms of how trees might look. Not every tree looks the same, and I'll do some more videos that look at different types of trees. But the important thing is that if trees are something we find a bit tricky to draw, is that we practice them. Because nothing sadder, I think, than I see a really nice architectural drawing, but a tree's been added that doesn't have the same observation and careful line work as the architectural elements of the drawing. So we don't want to have a wrong note in our song with the tree. We don't want attention drawn to the tree because it doesn't work as well as the building does. So it's worth persevering, because every element of our drawing should be drawn to the same standard, the same level of observation and line work and drawing technique, so that everything goes nicely together and sits in place. Hope that's all been helpful. Have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.